I believe you do.
Very good. All right. So I'll declare a quorum subject to confirmation. Let's move on. Abdallah or Mike, what do you guys want to start and we'll spend about 45 minutes.
Do you guys want me to share my screen? I can share the presentation.
Yes, please.
Okay, I just need authority from the host to share my screen.
You should have it now.
Oh yeah, good. Roy, thank you. Everybody put your name in the chat, please. All the members are guests as well as we move along. Thanks.
Okay. May I take? Yeah, I'll start. So, good afternoon, everyone. So let's start. I think we have a few updates to give you on the performance of the commuter rail and then on the ridership. So, on the performance of the commuter rail, October has been a challenging month where you can see there the on-time performance. The on-time performance is where the train arrive at its final destination within 4 minutes 59 seconds after his scheduled time. So maximum is 5 minutes. So pass or fail. So the on-time performance in October was challenging, 88.33%. The main reasons, there are three main reasons of the performance being lower than the previous months. The first one is what we call the slippery season. Basically, with the fall season, we have the leaves on the trees. When they fall on the track, the track then become slippery, and then the locals struggle to get traction, and that delays the train by a few minutes here and there. So slippery season has been challenging this year, more challenging than if you look at the previous October was an excellent year, but because you probably have seen the weather conditions are different. So we had very little rain, and the rain usually wash the track away and helped a little bit. So little rain, and the temperature changes, and we have some measurement comparing this year to last year. It's the fact that the condensation that is created by the change in temperature between the night and the day were quite warmer than usual, has created that moisture on the track that has created those CSAF. So basically, we have a plan. The plan is basically wash trains, laser trains, but wash trains overnight when it's possible over weekends, making sure that the tracks are ready. And the fact that the leaves are still, and you can probably have seen in many of the networks, some of the leaves have been lasting long in the trees, and they are still there on the trees, where usually by mid-November, all of them are down. They are still there. So they're going slower. So, and that's all the weather condition has made the train running with delays because of the slippery condition. So that's one of the main reasons of this on-time performance. There are two other ones. The second one is we have challenges in equipment availability, locomotives availability. It's something that we know we are working on. That's the second reason. And the third one for October is it's the haunted happenings. It's the event that happened at Salem. So basically, we were an extra train to take the crowd, a lot of crowding from North Station to Salem, and that has delayed the train because obviously the dwell time, the journey times are longer, and that has created October being more challenging. And for the first time over the last 3 years now, we've seen delays on train during weekdays. Usually we see a ridership very high over weekends, people traveling to in and out Salem from Boston. And we saw more of them because of the nice weather conditions on weekdays. So we had seen many delays on weekdays where we didn't see it before. So this is roughly the three reasons why the on-time performance is lower than the previous months. That's my first element. The second one, it's on the ridership recovery. You can see there on the graph, and you look at the numbers there, we can see that we are roughly closer. It's between 95 and 100% of the pre-COVID-19 ridership level. So we are nearly back to where the ridership was before COVID hit, and you can see it moved from 10%. So we continue in the increase. It has been over the last couple of months quite static, around 95-ish. So on a 95, 100, but it was there. So it has been static for the last couple of months. Um,
Sorry, what are you measuring there? Is that number of trips or dollar fares
it's
or what?
journeys. It's journeys done by riders. It's the number of journeys. When someone take the train for one point to point B from one station to another one. So it's all the journeys, the ridership. Um, so on the ridership, I think it's continued a good trend. I think we still, as a commuter rail in Boston, we are ahead of the other commuter rail in the US. I think we don't have the last updated graph. I think the last data was July, so it's probably too old now. But when we have the new data next time, we will be able to show you how we trend towards our colleagues from other commuter in other cities. But we still trend much better than any of the other commuter, including New York. So as a recovery, okay, as a recovery of the ridership.
Quick question.
And sorry, I will just end just to put some a little bit more color into what I've just said. So the ridership is roughly at 95% of what it was before COVID, but those are not the same riders. I always said that, but I would try to repeat here that they're the same riders. So what we saw, it's an increase up to 200%, more than 200 in some lines over weekends. So the weekends has seen a significant increase. Off-peak travel, non-peak travel have seen a significant increase. The one that is currently lagging is the peak, even though we have some lines that have some peak recovered, but the peak travel has not recovered. And basically what we are saying here, we've moved the commuters, the proper commuters, travelers, the commuters have not come back yet completely. But what we have seen coming because of the change on the schedule, it's the leisure travels and all the other travels that are happening that are not for work. That's it's a different, what I was trying to explain, it's different riders now than they were before COVID-19.
Abdallah, can I just interrupt for a second? Just to clarify, so hopefully you're going to get through your presentation in about 35 minutes. Is that right?
I think we have all the slides, but I think it will probably shorter.
Yeah, will that work because I want to allow some time for question and answer. And I see Chet has his hand up. I would just say if you have a quick clarifying question, but let's hold any discussion or complex questions to the end. Chet, do you have a quick clarifying question or okay? So let's go on, Abdullah, and and we'll hold the heavy questions to the end.
I think we'll actually pass it off to Mike now to talk about the schedule.
Great, thanks.
All right, afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to run through this slide, which will give a quick update on our fall schedule change, which is going to go into effect on Monday, November 18th. As most know, we typically change the schedules twice a year, usually sometime in the fall, and then again in the spring. Not a lot of major changes at all for this fall schedule change. Just a few items to run through. Abdel talked about slippery rail. We're obviously in the middle of that season right now, and that runs through November. So we're going to be adding a couple of minutes on some select routes, which normally see the majority of the delays as part of the schedule change. On the Worcester line, we had added train 552 in the spring. That's an express train from Worcester. We're going to be adjusting the start time out of Worcester for that by 5 minutes. It'll be 5 minutes earlier leaving Worcester and arriving at South Station at the same time. And that's to address a couple performance issues it encounters along the line, mainly in the Newton area. Also on the Worcester line, we're going to be introducing a midday construction schedule for a number of projects, mainly highway projects. I'm sure most are familiar with the I-90, 495 interchange, construction work that's going on, as well as a few other highway projects along the route. So we've done construction schedules on the Worcester line in the past. It takes away a couple of midday trains to allow larger work windows for crews to get track time to work on those construction projects. Over on the Old Colony line, very, very minor changes as we start preparing for South Coast Rail, which we anticipate joining the rest of the commuter rail network next spring. And then lastly, on the Fairmont line, there is one midday change on the train to allow for a required maintenance window. When we stepped up service in the spring to 30 minutes, we found it a little bit difficult to do maintenance. So we want to make sure we have a window there in the midday. So there'll be one trip coming out of the Fairmont line schedule to accommodate that. And as I mentioned, and we highlight Worcester in particular since that's seen the most changes. I mentioned that train 552 5 minutes earlier. And then the construction schedule, I've listed the number of projects that are going on. So you can see there's quite a bit of work going out on the Worcester line right now. Some of it is railroad related. So you'll see the mini high project that Keolis is doing at Wellesley Square. We've got some culverts we're doing at Westboro as well in December, but the majority of it are MassDOT highway and bridge projects. I mentioned the I-9 in Newton, Alston Viaduct, I-495, I-90 interchange, and then Fisher Street overhead bridge as well. Right. Any questions on the schedule?
Yeah, that's actually the end of the slides, so you know.
Okay, so is that the end of your presentation, everybody? Or, okay. Just before we get into general Q&A, I think we did want someone to try to address, I think you have two issues. One is current contract talks and how that might affect operations, and the other is the implementation of the fare reduction program on commuter rail. Is there any updates on those?
I think to clarify,
when he talks about the contract, I think from the emails that came over, he actually means the CBAs with the union.
Yeah,
That's-
well, that's what I mean. No, sorry,
Yes.
I meant union contract talks. Yeah.
yes. Thank you, Mike.
As opposed to the RFP for the successor commuter rail contract.
Exactly. Thank you for the clarification. Yes.
Okay, so maybe I'll take this one for the CBA, the union contracts. I think I'll leave the other questions around the fare to Mike Muller. So on the CBA, just give you some context. So the negotiation with the unions and the contract with unions here in Keolis. So we are talking here about 14 unions. So we have 14 unions that covers roughly 2,000 employees that do the work, basically, from the train drivers to conductors to signalmen to dispatchers. So all of them are covered by different type of arrangement contracts. So we have 14 of them, 14 unions. So these negotiations and those conversations about their union contract, their CBAs, are governed by a federal law, not by the state law. That federal law is the Railway Labor Act. So the Railway Labor Act basically govern how, when, and how we do the negotiation and what it needs to cover, not cover. So that's what we follow historically. So the negotiation right now where we are. So just to be clear, till a new contract is agreed, the old contract stands. So no union member is left without a contract, but it's just that the pay rises, the financial element of it is pending the future negotiation of the next contract. And then it's retroactively paid when the deal is done. Negotiation usually take between 1.5 to 2 years till it gets signed. But nevertheless, we've started the negotiation. The situation right now with it's of the 14 unions, 9 of them are now, since last March, reunited in what we call a coalition. So basically, they negotiate all together. And the other 5 unions, 3 of them are in active negotiation with us, and 2 others have filed for mediation. It's a national mediation board, and now the negotiation is continuing under this national mediation board that dictate the timeline, the discussion. So if you ask me where we are of these 14 unions, 1 has already signed an agreement, so we've signed 1 of them. And the others are currently active. And as I speak right now, the team are negotiating right now today with the coalition, for example. Today they are in a room negotiating. So those are in good faith, open and continuing. So this is probably the one I would say. I'm happy to say that I hope that I can get the others signing as we made one of the unions sign. I think the others will probably, in a good faith, will find a way to make them sign the deal. So I think we are working on it, and I'm quite confident.
Great. And also, that did remind me that is the Keolis contract, what's the status of your contract now? Is there some issue with it, or?
So the Keolis contract expires on June 30th of 2027.
Okay.
So they're going to continue to be our operator for at least just under 3 more years, 2.5 years. And in terms of the re-procurement of the contract, the tentative timeline, and this is really an MBTA activity. Keolis, we expect, will be a bidder in this process, but we're going to be getting decisions within the leadership of the Commonwealth by the end of the calendar year on the structure and RFP strategy for the successor contract. We're going to be doing what they call an industry day. We're targeting February of 2025. That's when we sort of bring in all the prospective bidders and give them a presentation, like sort of a preview of coming attractions of what the contract structure and the RFP will be like. We then, at the end of Q1 2025, we'll be doing an RFQ, a request for qualifications, and then we'll shoot for to release an RFP in summer of 2025.
Okay, thank you. So members, we should think about that, and if we want to, talk about that as an agenda item. Mike,
I would say sorry, Rob, once we have decisions from the highest levels of the Commonwealth and we are prepared to present the recommendations to our board, I would be happy to give this group, a high level update on the contract structure.
Appreciate that.
Strategy.
And just the fare reduction program, quickly, and then we'll get into.
So sorry, I'm hijacking a little bit. Just to finish on my point, because I probably missed one point to say. You asked a specific question, the CBA, the union's contract. I just want to say that you've asked about if it has an impact on the operation. It doesn't have any impact. So far to date, it's a negotiation happening, so there is no impact.
Great. Thank you.
And Rob, on fare reduction program, I assume you mean the item that Lindsay Heffernan presented about the low-income reduced fares?
Yeah, the half fare for low-income people.
So I don't have numbers in front of me, but one of the things I can tell you that the MBTA was able to do is because of data that we already had on some number of riders that were eligible for other reduced fare products. They auto-enrolled something like 60,000 seniors in the reduced fare program who met the eligibility criteria for the reduced fare program.
But you guys are actively implemented and working with various agencies to get people certified. Yeah, it might be good to have an update when we get some ridership numbers.
And I think I'll ask Lindsay to come back and do that.
Okay, great. And so I see Chet and Colette have questions. So Chet, we'll go with you first. Are there other people? Yeah, raise your hand if you want to. We'll go with Chet and then Colette.
Thank you. Two quick questions. How is that ridership data collected? Is it through conductor counts or any sort of technology being probe data or camera counts? And has it been consistent?
So the ridership is measured through the count of the conductors on board.
Okay. So, while the graph is definitely trending in the right direction, is that count independent of revenue-based activities? And was it a one-for-one through periods of low fare collection?
It's total. The counts are totally not related to fare collection.
Thank you. Okay, so it's been consistent. And then second quick question, in regards to the scheduling change, have RTAs been notified so they can adjust their schedule and support with first and last mile transport?
Yes, there's been an outreach with the RTAs on the schedule change. That's been an area we're really trying to improve on that.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Colette?
Thanks, Rob. Just a couple of questions. This time last year when we talked about this, the schedule changes, we were talking about how can we get the schedule changes out to riders a little bit before the drop date so that they're not, there's not that reaction to it. And so since it's the Worcester line that's the most affected looking like in this schedule, I looked on your site today, it just said, more information coming for commuter rail. When are you going to get out to commuter rail riders, and especially the people that ride in the middle of the day, because they're going to be the most affected? So that's my first question, Mike.
So we would have liked to have gotten these out earlier, and I'll let Keolis speak a little bit more to that, but there were some last minute process hiccups. We're hoping to get them out today at the earliest, but certainly by the end of this week. It's
Okay.
definitely it's a miss. Quite frankly, it's not as much time as we would like to give.
They
All
are
right.
currently up on the website now, so I just double checked and I can show you, Colette, where that is. But
All right.
they are up.
Okay,
But they
if you
would have
could,
just gone up today, to your point.
Yeah,
They
they
just
went up
went
today.
up today. Okay, wow. Okay, thank you.
Alana, if you could drop that in the chat, that would be great, and I'll forward that. Is there a press release or something that we can have our public information officer push out? We're going to have to sort of try and push this out a little bit, or is it just here it is? It's on the website.
They're on the
So-
website now. In the past, Keolis has done a press release, and Alana, can you confirm whether or not Jake is going to?
I've got an email on it, so it's the email's being sent out to people to get alerts and haven't gotten notice of the change in schedule.
The alerts are good. We try to get people through a number of different channels. So you're right. If you're signed up for alerts, you will get the alerts, but we generally do a press release as well.
Yeah, and I'll just say in terms of where they live on the website, if you go to the timetable page
Yeah.
for the website and you look for the PDF schedules, there's always one at the bottom that says upcoming schedule. So for every line, the schedule is available there.
Okay.
I totally agree, not an ideal timeline in terms of getting this out, but and I think Sherry's on this call. Sherry, Jake is planning on doing a press release for this. Yeah, Sherry's nodding yes. Yeah.
Yes, it's in the works.
Okay, great. And so if that can come to us, we'll definitely push it out. Then the other question I had is on that screen that you showed, Abdallah, or actually Mike, it said that it's work through December, so it's only 2 months that there's going to be work on that track.
Yeah, I should have clarified that. The construction schedule on the Worcester line is just from November 18th until the end of the calendar year. So about 6 weeks.
Okay, and does that have any impact on speeding up the work that's done in Natick that's kind of affecting Mike Muller? I talked before about the platform changes in Wellesley, and now that we're having ADA accessibility in Wellesley, those platform changes are tough for wheelchair riders to get from one platform to the other. But I was under the understanding that work in Natick that's kind of driving those platform changes could be like 18 months ongoing. Is it going to change? Is that timeline going to change in any way because of these closures that we're talking about?
So the construction that we're referring to is really about cyclical rail and tie replacement work that happens on each line on a line by line basis. It's that work is independent of the work at Natick, but it's because of the multiple projects going on the line that we do this reduced schedule for a limited period of time. Mike,
right.
I don't know if you want to add any more to that. Do you happen to know specific details of the timeline for completion of the Natick project?
So it's the last I saw is it is in 2025 for completion. And I guess the short answer is by doing the construction schedule, yes, it allows more time to present an opportunity to speed up the timeline. But there's still a decent amount of work to do out there. So I think once we go through the construction schedule and we're done with it, we'll see how that's helped them to advance a completion date.
All right. Now, my last question, which is a little off topic, we every year we'll get a question from 1 or 2 residents saying, "Why are you blowing a horn?" We don't have rail crossings in Wellesley, but the train blows a horn, and I understand it's for safety reasons. But I'm wondering if there's a policy that you can point me to so that when residents talk to us, we can say, "Look, here's a policy. It's safety. It's this, that, and next thing."
We can send you regulatory language. So
Yep.
because of all the work on the line, anytime that there's workers or work equipment on or near the right of way when the train is approaching, they're required by regulation to blow the horn. Also, where there might be a trespasser or some person crossing the tracks near the tracks in a place, then all similarly required by regulation to blow the horn.
Okay.
And I would say that in those situations, even when there's a designated quiet zone, if there's workers on the right of way or some other person who's not supposed to be there, the engineer blows the horn.
All right. Okay, I think I've hogged the microphone for long enough. Thank you.
All right. Mike Brooks, I want to make sure that anything you want to add to that bit about the whistle.
Nope, that was spot on. Just to emphasize, yes, the regulation for roadway worker safety supersedes a quiet zone.
So I don't, it does, Mike or somebody from Abdella's team, can we grab that regulatory language and send it to Colette in an email, please?
we do that. Sure.
Very good. Yeah, and maybe me as well. We have a quiet zone underway in Ashland. So anyway, we've been working on it for 8 years. So anyway.
Yeah, they don't come easy.
No.
The FRA doesn't like to grant them, but
Bruce, you had your hand up?
I had two
you
quick
have your hand
questions.
up,
One's
yeah.
a follow-up on the schedule change issue. I find it very, very hard to find the schedule changes. It sounded easy when I was looking at it before Alana spoke, and I couldn't find it.
Right, yeah.
And it's a challenge because we're trying to have our commuter bus know when to pick people up. If there's a schedule change. If I could share my screen, I'll show you.
Yeah, one thing I noticed when I go to look for the new schedule, it can be difficult to find. So
What would be I went to the schedule page for Littleton, and there's no evidence of the schedule change where the schedule is.
Yeah.
I can show you on my
Yeah, no, I think we get your point, Bruce. It's done as this whole special separate thing instead of integrated with the schedule.
and so you go, if you're a normal user, you're going to go and look up the schedule page, and you don't find anything.
So if you put the date, so there's two ways that it goes up there. If you put a future date in, so if you put, like, for example, November 19th, because it is important. This is one of the ways that we have to manage potential confusion with passengers. If you put the schedule up now in a way that it could be confused with the current schedule, then you have people now looking for a train at the wrong time. So if you use the interactive schedule page, which this is.
So what I understand from Alana now is if I go down to this PDF schedule, I can find the two ones. My simple suggestion would be to have something at the top that says see schedule changes. If you click on it, it'll take you to those PDFs.
New schedule, effective date, yeah. Yeah,
Which is down here.
Integrated
anyway,
with the current schedule.
It's not
right.
obvious.
So the PDF is there, but you think an alert at the top with a link to the PDF. I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
The other bit is not this page, but the page that shows you the timetable. Like the active timetable.
Oh, this page here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this one.
If you put the date in, so it says schedule for today. If you put November 19th, then these scheduled times and the timetable will change to the effective times for the November 18th schedule.
Yeah, except if I'm looking to take a train next week, I'm just going to look at the schedule and assume it's the same.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that.
Unless there's a notice at the top, I'm not going to know that to look at the future date.
That's really good advice about the notices at the top, but the reason why the dates are there is because for various reasons, including seasonality, the kind of limited service we just did to haunted happenings, the fact that the Worcester construction schedule we were just saying only runs to the end of December, the date matters.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a comment. I'm sure there's an easy way to fix it. Yeah. The other comment I have is I'm a senior pass user. And I attempted to link it to my phone when the new phone capability.
I can't believe that,
out.
Bruce. I find that hard to believe. You're a senior pass user? Come on. Okay. Come on.
Hey, I'll be 70 next year. But anyway, it was impossible to do it on the website. So I went to the service desk at MBTA down at Downtown Crossing because I was going down there one day. And I said, hey, can you help me do this? It took them 20 minutes to figure out how to link it. And then when I got on the T, it still didn't work. So I just wanted to share that feedback.
Okay. That's good feedback. We'll take that back.
Thanks, Bruce. Any other? I had one. Just I don't know, Mike. Do you want to give us an update on fare collection, how that's moving along, and
Yeah, I actually think Abdella's in the best position to talk about that because they are doing a lot of management oversight activity and he can talk a lot about that. But I will just say before I turn it over to Abdella, this is an extreme area of focus for MBTA management and KLS management. We know there's more work to be done. but there have been some early gains in that activity.
Great to hear.
So maybe then I'll take over from Mike on the fare collection. So yes, there had been a significant increase in the supervising the activities of conductors, but I just want to remind the conductors' primary job is not to collect the fare, and it's not to do that. It's to do the safe operation and close the doors, because the doors are not automatic. So it's very important that they focus on making sure that the door are closed, that no one is trapped in there. So they have some key requirements that they have to do first, and then they have to obviously inform passengers and then collect the fare, check tickets. So we, over the last probably 4 months now, have been a huge effort going on and out, tracking individuals to just making sure that they're actively checking tickets. So and the numbers are there, so we can see when you look month to month and you look at October month, this October compared to the October last year, you can see that there have been like 300% increase in ticket checks. So basically twice, 200%. So it's 3 times. So basically the number of riders that get the ticket checks, it's 3 times more in October this year than it was a year before. And it's not down to ridership. So a lot of increase there. So do we still have few individuals that are still not collecting the fares where they should do in some specific trains? Yes, we track them on a weekly basis and we monitor that. So, but you look at the last 4 months, 5 months, the trend has been very good. So basically we have more and more ticket checks. But what I just want to manage here is the expectation about having 100% of the riders being checked. It won't not going to happen, because that technically it's not possible. But I think the solution there, and it's probably the gate at South Station, for example, because we saw the results of the gates at North Station and the impact that it has on people and riders activating their M-Ticket apps, for example. We saw that numbers. So, and I think one of the ultimate solution is to have those gates. But since then, I think we have still work to do in Keolis, and we are doing it, and we push very hard on this.
All right, thanks, Abdel. Appreciate it. Brian, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. I'm sorry, Rob. I'm having a senior moment here. Electronic doors, Abdullah and Mike. I understand those can be opened automatically from the cab, and we choose not to for various reasons. Is that the case? And has there been consideration of opening doors automatically?
So the only lines you can use automatic doors on are lines where every station has full high-level platforms. Because if you use automatic doors, you can't open them one door at a time. They all have to open. So
that sounds a little scary. Yeah.
So we do use the automatic doors on the Old Colony lines. There is a universe where we could use them on the Fairmount line, but we have 2 stations that don't have full high-level platforms. So we could be using automatic doors at all the other stations of the Fairmount line, but I believe we don't. But that is a line, that's the only other line in the system where we could do it. All the other lines, we have sort of an unfortunate mix of accessible and inaccessible stations.
And is the vision long-term to have all single-level platforms?
We would have full high-level platforms in every station. That's the long-term vision. I mean, I think we all understand that we're a long way off of that.
Yep. All right.
Thanks. Steven?
To add on that too, Brian, for info, you also need the consoles to all be uniform as well. So if you have a bi-level mixed with single-level cars, you can't get the automatic doors to open through the train if you have manual doors in between. Yeah, so you need uniform train set, uniform stations.
So just think about how we're addressing that strategically is as we think about designing and procuring the future fleet, when we think about electrification and battery electric vehicles and replacing eventually all of the current locomotives and coaches with the future fleet, we would do it with automatic doors in mind and the intention to eventually move to a system with full high-level platforms, full accessibility, and a uniform rolling stock fleet with automatic doors. That's the strategy, but that's not a solution for tomorrow.
Thank you. Stephen, did you have a question?
Yeah, so it's just my experience, but it seems that all the conductors are using the electronic ticket checkers now,
Great.
which is a big improvement from the previous time we met. But there are still times when, they just don't collect the tickets at all. And for some reason, and maybe it's just what I've encountered, but if you don't get it collected in the morning when you go in, and the return trip doesn't seem to get collected either. Maybe that's the people who are on working that day, but I seem to have noticed that. So it's not enough to really say that that's a something that's really happening. But can I talk about the announcement that they had for the electrification of the Fairmont line now? The
Sure, if you have a question, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm really happy about that. That's great. Something we've been waiting for. Uh, I noticed that uh, Alistair Sawyers didn't get any credit for all the work he did on that. He's the person that was behind it, and it was seemed to and didn't see his name get mentioned at all. And so next time we see him, I'm certainly going to thank him for all of that. And certainly Keolis has picked it up and is going with it. But I think he just deserves it. And the important thing I notice is on the publicity on that, the people don't really understand what the trains, how they work. When you say battery electric, and reading the Globe and all the comments from the Globe readers, they think battery electric means you got a battery and an electric motor. They don't realize there's also catenary, which is doing it. The newspaper was just really not good at explaining that or mentioning that. You're able to find it in the article, and it wasn't explained at all. So a lot of people think that with the new trains, they're going to get to the station at the end of the line, and you have to get out and plug it in and wait for the battery to be recharged. So there's that misconception out there that probably be a good thing to let people know, because they'll be more accepting of what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation about the media. I will say, for this, in terms of our presentations, all of our presentations to the board on this subject, my presentations to A Better City, and all the other presentations we've done at conferences, all really spend a lot of time explaining just that very thing, Steve, about the discontinuous catenary approach with the power infrastructure and the battery. So to the extent that the Boston Globe and some other periodicals are missing that, I'll take that note back to the comp team that we could be more proactive, perhaps, at pushing that message. But I can tell you, anytime we've ever, my team, including Alistair, have ever talked about this publicly, we've spent a lot of time demystifying that very thing, because of what you're saying, that we were very aware that there previously had been a misconception out there that we were intending to use battery powered vehicles only without any overhead catenary infrastructure. And so we needed to get that message out there.
Excellent. I see.
Leaned into it.
So I see one more. I just want to make sure we're finish up by 2:45. So Colette, you have a question. I think that'll be the last question. Then we go into minutes and agenda discussion. Go ahead, Colette.
Right, yeah, I just have a follow-up question. Mike, I know we had talked about this a couple of meetings ago. Our town hall is very close to Wellesley Square train station. In the back of town hall, there's no fencing. It is a bit of a cut through. We do see students on that path. We talked about it before. Town hall's been closed for 18 months for renovations. We open up at the end of December. Staff, public, everyone's going to be back milling around that area more than before. Also, we're going to have the ADA accessibility at Wellesley Square. So I think in general, it's going to be a busier area. I just wanted to follow up again and say, I know that you were quite concerned about it. We talked about, I know that you can't do fencing everywhere, but that's an area where it might warrant a closer look. And I just wanted to bump that back up in your, I'm sure, giant list of to-dos, but.
Yep, thank you. I wrote it down because we're talking about fencing quite a lot lately. So I'll put that back at the top of the list. Wellesley Square at Town Hall.
Yep.
Thank you, Colette.
All right, thanks.
Well, thank you. Is there any other wrap-up items before we let our guests leave us? Anybody else? Brian, anybody? So I guess we'll thank you, folks. We'll be putting together an agenda, so we're looking forward to see you again. The quarterly is working pretty well for everybody. I think was it July and now November, right? So we'll see you again in around February or so, I think, sounds like. And is there, if there's questions or issues that come up, Mike, is it okay to email you or text you?
Yes, please do.
If people need that, I have some contacts, and Brian and Hannah, I'm sure, do as well. All right, well, thank you to our guests. You're welcome to hang around and watch us in action, but otherwise you can go back to running the tea and Keolis. All right, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
All right, so members, I guess Colette made actually a suggestion that we try to catch up on our old minutes. Does anybody is everyone prepared to vote on some of the old minutes? I don't know if I need to do it one at a time, so I guess I'll start with, well, why don't we do the most recent one? Does that make sense? So that would be the minutes of September 12th. Were there any changes to the minutes as presented? I think Hannah sent them out earlier today. Stephen?
Yeah, so I mentioned a couple of times in there, but I'm not on the attendee list.
Oh, okay, so we should add you to the attendee.
Add me to the attendee list.
Okay. Any other changes to the minutes?
No.
All right, so I'll accept a motion to accept the minutes with the addition of Steve's name.
So moved.
Is there a second? That was Greg, I take it. Okay. All
Wellesley
those
second.
all those in favor of motion's been made and second. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye or
Aye.
raise your hand. Wave.
Aye.
I call a unanimous approval of the minutes of September 12th. Okay, the other minutes I have are July 11th. Is that correct? People had a chance to look at the July 11th minutes. They were distributed and posted some time ago. Any questions or changes to the July 11th minutes? I will entertain a
I move we
motion.
accept the July minutes.
So Steve makes a motion, second on that.
Second.
Wellesley seconds.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and second. All those in favor of approving the minutes of July 11th, say aye. Wave.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I'll take that as a unanimous approval, and I think that leaves us the June minutes, right? What was that? What's the date on those minutes? Does anybody have it?
June 13th.
June 13th. All right, so any questions or issues with the June 13th minutes? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of June 13th, 2020?
Move to accept.
Second.
And I have a second from Steve. And all those in favor of accepting the minutes of June 13th, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Minutes have been accepted and passed. All right, thank you. So that's the minutes. And so what I have left on the agenda is agenda discussion, or upcoming schedule and thoughts on. I know that was it Bruce that came up with a fairly long list of ideas. So one thing I think we had today so in terms of timing, Brian, do you have some suggestions on what we should looking at? It sounds like December is going to be pretty busy. We've got executive board and also the full board meeting coming up in December. Is that right?
So yeah, the full board meeting in December is our annual general meeting where we will elect new officers and committees. So if you want to continue on this, let me know, please. The only thing that we sort of wanted to get to this year that the T hasn't met us on yet is South Coast Rail. We did talk a little bit about it, but as in terms of when the operating schedule is going to look like, they just haven't been able to tell us that yet. So what I sort of foresee for 2025 is we'll continue to do the quarterly regular updates with Keolis and Abdallah and Mike and everybody. We'll talk about South Coast Rail. They will continue to update us on schedule changes. And then I want to keep getting regular updates from the rail transformation folks about the shift, how that's going. We got to keep pushing them on that, because if it's not pushed, it won't move. I also want this committee to weigh in on both the operating and capital budgets, especially the capital budget. That's critically important to the future of rail around here. And then I'm open to other suggestions if folks have them. I mean, there's lots of topics and ways we could go.
Yeah.
If there's other properties you'd like to hear from to sort of do a comparison, there's been a big push on looking at Toronto in recent months from a lot of folks, which runs a similar style system. Um, I'm very open to your suggestions.
Okay, and what was the Toronto subject? You mean to see how they do things? We got a
Yeah, so
trip to
Toronto is
Toronto?
run by a former T guy named Brian Dwyer,
Oh, yeah.
and they run a similarly sized system to what is operated here. So one of the questions sort of has been, and there's actually been a lot of folks going back and forth to Toronto recently in this space. Sort of what do they do and how do they do it and what can
Okay.
we learn from them?
That might be
Um,
interesting.
but you know, SEPT is similar as well, and there's lots of ideas. Um, so again,
So
your
I think
committee, let me know how you
Brian,
want to do it.
yeah. So before I see Bruce's hand, the one thing that I remember that we've talked about in the past or discussed, one was the potential of a name change for this committee to regional rail. And so I think we'd want to figure out if there's a process that we should undertake to do that. I'm presuming that there's some support or interest from the members of undertaking something like that, or just thinking about it.
Well, let me just give you my concern
Sure.
there is that it's called the Commuter Rail Network now by the T, and we
Yeah,
don't have a regional rail network, quite frankly. And
yeah.
so I'm just afraid that calling this committee the Regional Rail Oversight Network for something that doesn't exist is really silly.
But other than that, you think it's a good idea. Just kidding.
Sure.
Yeah.
I will say I share Brian's view on that, but you could change it to commuter and regional rail committee if you wanted to get the word regional in and not confuse people.
All right. So, Steve, is this about this topic, the regional
Yeah,
rail?
I mean, it's my favorite topic. I brought it up originally.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, I mean, we're trying to get a regional rail, and we're moving towards it. And they've all, and the first part of it, the electrification of the Fairmont, and all these other things that are happening, are all working towards regional rail. So I think now's the time to
All
do
right.
it.
Thanks. Colette, did you have a thought on this? I see.
Not on the regional rail thing, but just in terms of the functioning of the committee, I think, I think it's great to have as many people who want to come to these meetings come to these meetings, but to be clear about, should we have voting members and non-voting members so that we make sure we have a quorum, something like that, just to make sure that we can actually do business.
So I'm presuming that everybody listed as a voting member. Is that correct? Is there an issue with that, or?
I mean, I don't know what Brian thinks about it.
Yeah, so Hannah and Isabella have sort of reached out to everybody on the committee and asked them if they want to continue. That's how we
Yeah.
learned that the West Bridgewater folks didn't want to. As we move into 2025, I'll sort of have deeper conversations with folks and see if folks really wanted to keep doing this. You folks here are sort of the core group, to be very honest with you, with one or two other folks. So I think we can make some changes.
Okay. So in terms of agenda build, so one thing, I think this name change, why don't we just agree to put it on a future agenda for discussion? And if we decide not to do it, that's fine. But I don't think we should be discussing it now, but let's just put it on, the parking lot for a future agenda. The other thing that occurs to me that we just discussed is the whole RFP process for Keolis, and should this committee have some sort of role, if any, on that process in terms of thinking about or contributing to that discussion?
So yeah, that's a conversation that I've started kicking around with Phil Ang. As Mike mentioned, this will be the biggest contract ever issued by the Commonwealth or Commonwealth entity when it's issued in 2027. The process is starting now. I worked on the last procurement in 13, I think it was, and that was a bear, and this one's expected to be more. I think there needs to be a role for us and for cities and towns, and I've expressed that to the GM, and I think he's heard me. I don't know what they envision right now, but I know it will be a long process.
All right, so maybe just next agenda, we have at least a check-in on that and discussion. So,
Yeah.
so Brian's kind of laid out a schedule. So do we have other things we want to add? Bruce, go ahead.
Yep, Rob. Yeah, so the first I wanted to say thank you to Brian and Hannah for all the effort they're making on getting people aware of the budget crisis.
Yeah, right.
And what I'm wondering is whether we need to have an agenda item, Brian, where you could lay out for us what we can do to help you. Because we
Sure.
said we defer that till the legislature goes back into session. And I think if you could give us a toolkit and things to support you on, I certainly would be willing to do that. I imagine others would. And
So is that like a
throw that
check-in,
out as
a check-in item each
Yeah.
meeting? Like where are we with the
Maybe.
budget and what should we
because I
do?
don't know how we're even going to do the contract in 2027 if we don't fix the budget.
Mhm.
Is that not an item that's better taken up at the full board rather than this subcommittee? Because it affects everyone, and you probably want to get the full board to weigh in on that.
It could be both, but it's there may be different constituencies to approach.
Mhm.
The commuter rail versus the T as a
Yeah, or
whole.
maybe,
So
if Brian's not at the meeting, Hannah could give us an update and if there's something particular that we should be doing.
yeah,
Maybe it's just a quick check-in to Colette's point, and the main work is done at the at the main advisory board, but certainly checking in on it is probably
Yeah.
a good thing.
Oh,
Bruce, did you have other items before we get to Steve?
Just continue on that.
Yeah.
What Brian said about the budget, but there's a lot of talk about the capital budget with the $700 million, but we're concerned about the capital budget also, and particularly where the capital budget affects the regional rail and the electrification.
Certainly.
So we want Brian to keep us updated on that
Capital budget.
and make sure that that's not left in the dust when everyone tries to come up with 700 million and that's all they come up with, but they don't have the money for the electrification.
I think it's fair to say that anyone who's sort of followed me or seen me on the task force knows that I talk about three things a lot, which is the $24 billion infrastructure deficit, the $700 million fiscal cliff, and the fact that Chapter 90 is nowhere near sufficient. And I say that often, and I think folks are getting sick of hearing me say it, but
You can never
that's
say
been my
that.
mantra, Steve.
Never say
a
it.
reminder for us to deal with, that the budget issues every meeting, at least check in. Other items, Bruce, are other members that haven't talked yet about other things that you want to see that we're not,
Can I just ask Brian to give a plug for the MAPC meeting that's coming up on this?
Yeah, so I'm presenting at an MAPC event on the 21st of November, where they will be talking about some funding opportunities that they've done some research on. There's a lot of work going on around the sort of edges of this task force. I would love to tell you that this task force is going to be solve all of our problems, but I don't see that happening, unfortunately. It's been a very disappointing experience, to be very honest with you. But a lot of work is happening sort of by folks around it. We have some polling data that we're actually going to go brief some folks up on Beacon Hill soon. So I think there is a path forward to getting this thing fixed that sort of runs tangential to the task force, but not through it. And MAPC is obviously doing part of that work. We're doing a lot of that work, and I know a lot of other folks are doing a lot of that work. So
that's a
you'll
good
see
point.
it come
So
out.
for those of us who aren't connected to MAPC, will you make this available in other ways, or will it be on our website or sent out or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think our December meeting, you'll see a lot of this stuff, Rob.
Right.
And one thing I'd say, I know Steve Olenoff might have been at the same meeting, but MAPC's winter or fall council meeting, I'm on the executive board there. I think Steve is as well. This is their number one legislative priority this year. It's transportation funding, but large, not just the T, but Chapter 19 other things. This is their number one priority. They're really going to bang the drum on this. And, I think that it's been really a great partnership. And the most recent meeting that they had on the T's fiscal crisis was their most popular webinar ever. And so they're getting good subtraction and eyes on it. So, they record all their meetings. I would highly recommend that if you can attend it, attend it. If you can't watch it, you can always watch it on times 2 speed and get through it quick. But it's definitely worthwhile hearing from them.
And that's on their website, Colette?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can register for the meeting and they'll send you a recording afterwards. They typically record everything. I can't imagine they
Yes,
won't.
I think some of us are no longer eligible to attend, so, less ex-officers, but anyway.
Anyone can attend that particular meeting.
Yeah, oh, good, okay,
November 21st at 2:00.
okay, thanks.
I'll be
Other
there.
other agenda planning items? We've covered it pretty
So
much.
why don't we coalesce around what we have here? We'll
Yeah.
talk. We'll send out a big list of ideas. We'll work with what Bruce has shared and what we've got over the last year, and we can put our heads together sort of soon to try to put that together into some
Touch base
semblance.
sometime. But we should generally plan on meeting again in when? January?
Yeah, I think January is good.
Sometime after our December meetings and the holidays. Great. Well, I want to thank everybody for attending. It's good to have a good attendance at these things. You know, if you know other members who maybe should be attending, feel free to reach out to add to our membership, and we'll try to, you know, firm things up in terms of attendance. And any other, I know there were some issues about the time. Is 2:00 on Thursday kind of okay with people? That's where we seem to be settling in on. Of course, you're the folks who are here today, so that's maybe if anybody got left out, we should think about that. But I guess we'll kind of stay with this timing unless we have some more
Well,
issues with it.
there's an MPO meeting.
Rob,
And when the
I
MPO meeting is
can
live,
make it work, but it would be easier for me. I just don't know if it would be for other people to
Bruce,
have it a little closer to the end of the day to not split the day up.
Oh, you
I
mean
don't know
like
if
3:00 or something?
or 3:00 or 3:30. That's just a question.
How does that fit with people? 3:00's okay with me. I mean, generally.
Yeah, later would be better for me on those. Occasionally, there's an MPO meeting that's live, so then that would be a problem.
Yeah.
So later the better.
Any other thoughts? Like maybe going to 3? I don't know. Maybe how about earlier, like 10:00? But that's kind of a
No.
prime time. Okay.
No, that's
So all right,
Morning's
I see
hard.
shaking
3
heads.
o'clock's
Okay.
better.
So maybe we'll think about 3:00. People let us know if it's a problem. We'll maybe shift a little later. Does that work for Brian? Hannah, what do you think?
We work for you. No worries.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thanks, everybody. I think with that, I will ask to motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, motion's been made. Someone seconded. All right, Bruce. All right.
Second.
Motion's been made second. Meetings, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, take care. Bye.